In the universal systems model, an open-loop system cannot dash. Great job. Regulate itself is the accurate answer. Which planet in our solar system has the least elliptical orbit? You got it. Your choice, Venus, is right. Study this image. Which color has an inclination of 5 degrees? Sharp thinking. Yellow is the right choice. When an object loses speed from its orbit, it experiences dash. Excellent. Orbital decay is a brilliant choice. Which of these is not a STOW vehicle? Well reasoned. Backmustard is the correct choice. A year on Mars is almost dash times as long as a year on Earth. Perfect. Twice is the correct choice. In our solar system, what body has the largest escape velocity? Correct. The Sun is the right answer. How many Lagrange points exist between the Earth and the Sun? Bravo! 4 is the answer. Whose laws describe how everything in the universe moves? On track. Sir Isaac Newton is the correct answer. A circle is to a dash, as a square is to a rectangle. Well picked. Ellipse is the correct answer. What are the 4 parts of the universal systems model? You're right. Input, process, output, feedback is the correct answer. Fill in the blank. Mars is the dash planet from the Sun. Exactly. 5th makes sense, and it is right choice. How long does it take for humans to fly to the moon? Nice selection. 2-3 days is the correct and valid answer. What kind of orbit does this image describe? Good job. Your answer, Paula, works well here. What keeps us from floating away into space? Strong choice. The force of gravity is the right answer. The far side of the moon has a dash crust. Smart move. Thicker is an accurate answer. The path taken by a spacecraft is a dash. Solid response. Trajectory is a valid choice. The Perseverance rover is headed to dash. Well done. Mars is the right choice. Delta V is a measure of change in what? You chose velocity, and it is correct. The Sun sits at 1 dash of an ellipse. Right again. Focus is a valid answer. What is specific impulse measure? Valid point. Efficiency is true. What draws matter to other matter? Good thinking. The force of gravity is the right answer. How many moons does Mars have? Great thinking. 2 is the right choice. The angle between the perigee point and the satellite's location, measured in the direction of the satellite's motion. Correct response. True anomaly is the most accurate answer. What is the line connecting the intersection of the orbital plane with the Earth's equatorial plane called? Nicely done. Line of nodes is a solid answer. What type of orbit does a satellite maintain if it remains at a fixed distance around the central object? Oh. Nice work. You chose circular orbit, and it is correct A. Who developed the Keplerian element set, which describes the orbital parameters of satellites' orbits? Right choice. Johannes Kepler is the best answer. Satellites will travel around Earth in elliptical paths with the center of Earth at one of the foci. Excellent choice. Kepler's first law is the right answer. In which type of orbit does the satellite's radius change as it revolves around the central object? Oh. Smart pick. Elliptical orbit is the correct choice. Describes the size of an orbit. For circular orbits, altitude is often used in place of this term. Clear logic. Your choice, semi-major axis, is sound and 100% true. What is the projection of a satellite's orbit onto the Earth, represented in a 2D map, called? On track. Ground trace is the correct answer. Dash law states that the path followed by the satellite around the primary will be an ellipse. Great job. Kepler's first law is the accurate answer. Which term refers to the furthest distance between a satellite and its orbiting body? Right again. Apogee is a valid answer. Which of the following orbital parameters describes the size and shape of the orbit? Nice work. You chose semi-major axis, eccentricity, and it is correct. What term is used to describe the closest distance between a satellite and the Sun? Perfect. Perihelion is the correct choice. What term describes the closest distance between a satellite and the orbiting body? You chose perigee, and it is correct. What is the term used for the darkest part of the moon's shadow during an eclipse? Nicely done. Umbra is a solid answer. What is the term used for the furthest distance between a satellite and the Sun? Good job. Your answer aphelion works well here. Which is the correct eccentricity for the ellipse indicated with the red arrow? Great thinking. 0.7 is the right choice. Dash satellite only exists directly above equator, aka sub-satellite longitude. Well picked. Geo is the correct answer. What is the name of the reedy with the red arrow on the ellipse pictured? Well done. Semi-minor axis is the right choice. Ancient Greeks used to believe the dash was at the center of the universe. Nice selection. Earth is the correct and valid answer. A dash is anything, natural or artificial, that orbits another body. Correct. Satellite is the right answer. If the US wants to spy on Russia, which orbit would be the best? Valid point. Molly is true. What type of solar eclipse occurs when the moon is at apogee? Smart move. Annular solar eclipse is an accurate answer. A dash refers to the motion of one object around another. Strong choice. Orbit is the right answer. The law governs the movement of satellites in Earth orbits. Bravo. Newton's law of mechanics is the answer. Which is the correct eccentricity for the ellipse shown? Sharp thinking. 0.4 is the right choice. What term is used when the moon is closest to the Earth? Correct response. Perigee is the most accurate answer. How many times larger is the Sun compared to the Moon? Well reasoned. 400 times is the correct choice. A measure of how circular or elliptical an orbit is. Clear logic. Your choice eccentricity is sound and 100% true. What eccentricity value does a perfect circle have? Smart pick. 0.0 is the correct choice. What shape is the Moon's orbit around the Earth? Right choice. Ellipse is the best answer. The tilt of the orbit relative to the equator. Exactly. Inclination makes sense, and it is right choice. Which of the following is not a type of orbit? You got it. Your choice, geodesic, is right. The inclination of a dash orbit is 90 degrees. Excellent. Polar is a brilliant choice. How long can a total solar eclipse last? Good thinking. Up to 7 minutes is the right answer. Robert Hooke had science beef with. Solid response. Isaac Newton is a valid choice. What shape are all natural orbits? You're right. Elliptical is the correct answer. Orbits are dash. Excellent choice. Elliptical is the right answer. How you will get all these quiz questions in PDF books format. Correct. Contact Narayan Changda is the right answer.